Now, our next speaker is Mark Hynes. He's a 10-year MDRT member and also 10 years of top of the table. He's a Platinum Knight of the MDRT Foundation, and for those of you who are guests today, the Foundation is the charitable arm of MDRT. Last year, volunteers packed 1 million meals to give to starving families, predominantly in Africa. They've given away $26 million since they've been formed in the late 50s. Mark Hynes became an independent broker in 1981, but he's also worked for various insurance companies and in management roles. He rejoined the advisor marketplace 18 years ago, and more recently set up Wealth Strategies, and last year accepted an invitation to join as a partner of St. James Wealth Management. Mark is simply one of the nicest people I know, and he also happens to run a fantastic business. So to share with us today on how to welcome clients, please welcome Mark Hynes.
Thank you very much, Caroline, and good morning to everybody. I've left the slide up here because I was lucky enough to give a presentation to Top of the Table in Hawaii in 2009, which made me immensely proud. Start off, the main problem is that that was an hour's presentation. We've got half an hour this morning, so I hope you'll be able to listen quickly to me. In order to grab your attention, we start off with a video, but we're going to save some time and cut that out. But the video would have been of the England rugby team winning the World Cup in 2003. Many of you will remember that we're over in Australia, extra time, last few seconds of the game, passed it back to Johnny Wilkinson, dropped the goal over, crowd went wild, and all the English people, of course, thought it was fantastic. All the English players went running around the field, hugging the coach, Sir Clive Woodward, and we were all ecstatic. I'm sure many of you will remember that. Now, the English don't do very well at sport very often, and so for the achievement of winning the World Cup, the coach at the time, Sir Clive Woodward, was knighted and got the OBE. And so part of my presentation is to try and form a link between the England World Cup winning coach, Sir Clive Woodward, a dentist from Brisbane, Australia called Dr. Paddy Lund, and a financial advisor from Surrey, England called Mark Hynes, and talk about some of the critical non-essentials that I've learned from those two other characters. However, before I go on to the main body of the presentation, I want to talk about a concept that I refer to as getting it, where I think that life or nature gives us the chance to learn lessons. And if we learn the lessons, we move on. And if we don't learn the lessons, they kind of come back and hit us a little bit harder. So, for example, some of us probably will remember or will know people who have serial bad relationships, so they keep on having a bad relationship. Others of us will know people who always seem to have motor accidents and always nudges and shunts. Of course, it's never their fault. And some people are always bad with money and always in debt. And what these people don't always realise is it's that their own actions cause the consequences, and they actually are responsible for much of the things that happen. And the metaphor of the waves there, in my mind, is that if I was to step into the ocean, the first step would be quite inconsequential. It would make no difference. And the second step, I'd feel the waves coming against me, and the third step would come along. And if I just kept walking into the ocean, eventually the waves would overpower me and would knock me over and do me some harm. So I think what we ought to try and do in life is that recognise that we're given lessons and multiple lessons and try and learn from them early so that we can move on. And by way of example, I want to explain about two areas of getting it. One is MDRT and one is life assurance. So when I joined the business in 1981, early in 82, I was lucky enough to be invited to a group of people that set up a new business called Chase de Vere. And we used to sit around and have sales meetings. In those days, it was okay to have sales meetings. And we would listen to tapes of the great and good. So on the very first page, I used to take notes at meetings. I don't know if any of you used to do things, good ideas, and then you stopped doing them, but I used to have a book of notes. And we used to listen to people like Norman Levine, to Bruce Etherington, Ron Barbaro, and in fact the legend that is Tony Gordon. And one of our meetings in 82, we invited Tony Gordon to come along to talk to our little group, and he travelled down from Bristol, gave a fantastic presentation. Now, Probably today, Tony is the most famous agent in the world, or advisor in the world. But he did tell us about his humble start. He had 42 presentations before he made a sale. So it was quite tenacious, which then lapsed. But what he decided to do was to change his attitude and to learn from others in the business, learn from people at the LIA and to go along to the MDRT. And Tony was quite enthusiastic about the MDRT and top of the table and explained all these things to us. I thought it was a very interesting talk and ignored it. Roll forward to 2000 and in February 2000, Tony was now the president of the whole of the MDRT. It was the first time I had a non-North American president of the MDRT, and he was talking at Denby's wine lodge in Surrey at the LIA meeting. Gave a fantastic presentation. One of the concepts that Tony explained about was the difference between need and want. Many fact finds and many sales presentations always talk about identifying clients' needs, which in my opinion, or not in my opinion now, following Tony's presentation, was gibberish. We should try and identify what clients want, not what they need. So I'm sitting there thinking, I get that. And then he again enthuses about the MDRT and the top of the table. So I'm sitting there and I made a pledge to myself that I would go to the MDRT the next year, but I would go as a top of the table qualifier, which at that time meant I would have had to double the productivity of anything I'd ever done previously. I'd previously been 150 to 200,000 core to the table, but never broken through the barrier. But in that first year, I didn't see any more clients, I didn't sell any more policies, but just changed 2 words in my vocabulary. Instead of asking people what they need, I asked them what they want, and that resulted in bigger solutions and bigger sales, and made more money, more than doubled my productivity in that year, and have been going along ever since. So Tony, thank you ever so much for inspiring me to go and for the idea. The thing that amused me most is when I got this book out to prepare for the talk, on page 1, a talk by Norman Levine. And Norman Levine gives a talk about the secrets of closing sales. And point number 3 is sell to needs, not wants. Sorry, sell to wants, not needs. So it was Norman Levine's idea, but all the good stuff keeps coming around in circles. So I now get MDRT, but thank you to Tony for inspiring me to go along. One area that I did get early on in my career is life assurance. I actually had 4 death claims in the very first year in the business. The first one was a friend of mine called Phil. He was out drinking with a pile of friends one evening. He was a designated driver. He was actually stone cold sober. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case for the driver that smacked into him and killed him outright. So 21, Phil was killed. First time I'd taken a cheque along to see any family, and I didn't really know what to expect. And actually it was a bit of a difficult experience. The family were quite insulted that we were exchanging money for their son's life, and they didn't really think he should have a financial value, and actually they were a bit peed off that I was bringing along money and they'd lost their son. So it was a bit uncomfortable, but we decided to, is there anything that you could do to perhaps celebrate your son's life and bring the family closer together? So what they decided to do was to have a family holiday in Gulf to the States and try and rebond. Second death claim I had was a friend of mine called Charlie. I used to work at the Bank of England before I joined financial services. We had a narrowboat, which is called Sterling, and one weekend Charlie hired that for his 30th birthday. Coming back onto the boat, having had a drink admittedly, slipped, hit his head on the boat, went underwater. It took a few days to find his body, and Charlie died as well. Phil's family went off to America, off to the West Coast, to have a family holiday to get over everything. Phil's father, very, very fit man, ran a building business, but unfortunately he had a heart attack out in San Francisco Bay, and so the mother and daughter had to bring back the body of the father that they'd gone on holiday to celebrate the son. Fourth one had a lady, Barbara, a teacher, mother of 3. She'd come down from the northwest to visit her son for the weekend. Her son had moved to London a few years earlier. Had a nice weekend together with her son. Walking along the River Thames, walking the dogs with her husband, and just outside Cliveden, big country house where the Astors live. And June the 6th, warm summer's evening, dry evening, a tree just cracked and crushed her to death. So in my first year, I had experiences of the emotional trauma that happens to families and the financial implications and consequences of that, which has meant that I'm not afraid to talk about life assurance because I recognise that people do die, and they die in unfortunate circumstances. So for me, in my first year in the business, I lost 2 good friends. I'm a mother, and I saw the impact that had on the families from there. So I'm not afraid now to talk about insurance to any of the clients that I work with. So back to the main body of the presentation. One of our sponsors here today, Zurich, were also the sponsors of the England rugby team when they won the World Cup in 2003. And one of the strategic byproducts of that was that Zurich got to invite some of the advisors to Twickenham, tour around Twickenham, and listen to Sir Clive Woodward give his views on business and all the things that he'd learnt as well. Very, very impressive presentation. One of the comments that Clive said is that in his business career, he's only ever read one book more than once, and that book was by a dentist from Brisbane, Australia, called Dr. Paddy Lund. And one of the concepts in Paddy's book is to talk about CNEs, critical non-essentials. It's not very easy to buy the book, by the way. You can't go onto Amazon, you can't buy it in a bookshop, you can only buy it by referral. Clive goes on to talk about what he'd learned from this book about CNEs, critical non-essentials, and the whole presentation was about the little things that make a difference, the little 1%. He said, at international standard, any team can beat any other team on its day, so what you're looking for constantly is just a little tiny difference to continually improve. And some of the examples that he gave, one was teamship rules to keep the teams together. So you got all the squad in a room together, and they would make up rules as to how to conduct themselves. So being on time actually meant being 10 minutes early. So if the meeting started at 10 o'clock, you were there at 10 to 10, and if you were there after 10 to 10, you were late. It had how you deal with the media, whether you do interviews, all sorts of things like that. And so anybody in the squad that was picked to play for England had to read the teamship rules and sign an undertaking that they would abide by them, so everybody collectively worked together. Clive was the first person to get an eye coach for a sports team. He employed a lady from South Africa, and she would come up and give an hour's training minimum every day to the squad to improve the strength of their eyes. Most of us know that when we're tired, the first thing that goes is our eyes. And when we're lively and when we're awake, it's our eyes that sort of, you get a chance to reflect that. So in coaching their eyes to give extra strength in that encouraged the team to be able to think more clearly when they're under pressure. And TCUP was one of his acronyms, TCUP being thinking clearly under pressure, was one of the things that the England team worked by. He was also an advocate for a new kit design. He recognised that lots of players were tackled by simply grabbing hold of the shirt or grabbing hold of the shorts and pulling a player down. So Clive was instrumental in designing the new kit where it's kind of spray on, which is the popular thing that the ladies suddenly seem to find rugby that much more interesting. Another thing that he noticed is that the players, when they went onto the pitch at the beginning of the match, clean kit, a little spring in their step, but when they came on after the second half and they were a bit muddy and groggy, that they didn't have the same spring in the step. So what he would get them to do is to change the kit and have a new kit for the second half. Obviously, you couldn't tell whether the backs had changed or not, but at least they came on feeling good and a little bit superior to the opposition. One of the key things that I took away from that was how he dealt with chauffeur companies. The rugby union had 3 contracts with chauffeur companies. They all had clean cars, they all turned up on time, they all got them from A to B. But one of the firms, every time Clive Woodward got into the car, they handed him a bottle of water and said, "Would you like a drink, Sir Clive?" And he recognised that this was a process-driven improvement, and he asked them about it. He said, "We think that our customers would enjoy a refreshment on the journey." So Clive was impressed by that, and he sacked the other 2 firms and gave the whole contract to this one firm simply because they gave a bottle of water to their customers on the journey. I wonder if any of us can think of what might we do to retain customers and prevent them going to competitors. I mentioned earlier, we haven't got time to go through the whole process, but you can only buy the book by referral. So if you want to buy this book, you have to go to somebody who's already got it, and on the inside cover, there's a little referral card, and then you can send off to the publishers, and they'll send you a copy of the book. In itself, it's a fantastic experience. They send you emails of the process of it. It comes with a little sprig of lavender, and then you engage in a sort of dialogue with them from there. So I'm now looking out for lessons in life. So I went along to Clive's presentation, listened to this, went off and got the book, read the book, and Paddy's story in a nutshell. He was very RDR ready in terms of segregating clients. What you may or may not know, but in dentistry, there's quite a high level of suicide. A lot of people struggle to cope with all the pressures of being a dentist. And Paddy was pretty close to giving up on his business and his life, in fact, and he reflected that actually there's a few of my patients are really nice. I really like a few of them. Most of them I really don't like at all. So he sacked 95% of his patients, thought about all the things he liked about the patients that he was going to keep, and decided to give them a fantastic service and build up the business from there. There's no listings, he's not on the phone book in the yellow pages, there's no signage over his office, and the only way that you can get in to be a patient of Paddy Lund is by referral, and not existing customers. You have to be a good patient, and then when you're good, he gives you a card and says you've now got permission to refer people to become patients of Paddy Lund. The whole experience is highly personal, it's highly choreographed, it's all process driven, great use of names, and there's a whole host of things that he does to help make a fantastic experience for his patients. I'm just smiling because when I prepared this slide the first time, one of the things that they do also is they renamed the tools. They realised that the implements that the dentists use when they were having their jargon between the nurses and the dentist, that it put off some of the patients, the names of some of the tools. And a few weeks before I did this slide, I had a vasectomy. So I'm lying on the couch, whatever it is. I had a female doctor and a female nurse poking around doing all that stuff. And they said, oh, just relax, Mark, needle, scalpel. I go, whoa, you need to know about Paddy Lund and rename some of the tools here because I don't want to know what's going on down there. Now, one of the other things that Paddy did is he also realised that he was spending too much time selling his services rather than performing his services. He loved giving high quality dentistry, but he didn't like having to justify the cost and didn't like have to explain to people why he was good and why he was worth it. So what he came up with is the concept of a welcome book. And so he sent out a welcome book to anybody that had been referred by an existing client who had permission to give a referral to become a patient to Paddy. And the the welcome book sets out, he says, I'm a really good dentist. I only use good equipment. I only use good stuff, expensive stuff. It's going to cost you quite a lot. But if you come to us, we will look after you and we'll give you really good service and we'll be fantastic. So before they come in for treatment, they've learned that how special he is. They learnt all about his process, they've learnt what he's going to do, and the outcome is that he stopped selling treatment and he was just delivering a really high quality service. Paulette's coming on in a minute, but one of the things that he focused on was creating value, and it's value is a word that's used very much in business. It's very difficult to quantify, but Dan Sullivan, who heads up the strategic coach, quantifies value as if you give people good relationships, creativity and leadership, then those three things together do in fact deliver value, and Paddy Lund delivers that in spades. So moving on, that is what the pyramids look like at the moment. I know that because I went on holiday and went running around on camels with my family last year. But that is what the last of the 7 wonders of the world actually looks like. But I chose to adopt the pyramids as my branding when I set up wealth strategies, a little bit more vibrant. I'll come back to this in a second, but a little bit sharper than the pyramids actually look. So what I decided to do was to try and be a little bit different in a number of areas. I'm going to rattle through some CNEs or critical non-essentials that I've got for myself. I'm not sure that everybody reads brochures these days, so what I decided to do was have a sort of mini brochure where my card's in the middle and there's a little bio of myself, a little bit about my unique process on the outside. The card comes out and the details are still the same. And it feels nice, still fits in people's pockets. It's a sort of hybrid between a brochure and a business card. But it buys me a few seconds when I first exchange cards between, oh, that's unusual, that's different, or why have you done that? And a greater chance to be memorable when I'm meeting people for the first time. And this card just slides out. We've also got cards for my support staff. I've only got 3 support staff, Andy, Joe and Yasmin. But they don't really need them, but they like the idea that they've got cards as well. So if any representatives come into the office and they can pass over their contact details, and maybe they give it to babysitters or friends from the school or something, I don't know. But they've got nice cards themselves also. I'd like to think we're quite family friendly in the office. They don't actually get monitored for the time they work or indeed for the days they work, and if they want to take time off and go to sports days or pantomimes or parents' evenings, then they're encouraged to do that. They don't work the birthdays. They've got nice little soaps and Molton Browns in all the bathrooms and things, so we're trying to fuss the staff and make them feel good. We work in a business which is very intangible. The service that we sell is intangible. So one of the things I wanted to do was create a product that people can touch and feel. But we also create lots of paper in financial services. People don't have a clue what to do with it or make it tidy. So we've got these folders with all the little tabs for pensions and investments and mortgages and wills and trusts and so forth. And they can have as many of these as they want. But it's quite nice to give them a sort of takeaway as a product that they can have if they work with us. One of the presentations I've seen twice at MDRT is by a chap called Leo Pusateri, fantastic presenter. He talks about you are the value and the value ladder, and some wonderful, wonderful ideas. One of which is that we ought to be able to express who we are and what we do in a sentence. He actually says 12 words, and I've cheated it a little bit. So on my email signature, when I send this out to the world, what it says is trusted to deliver a reassuring choice of financial solutions with honesty, clarity, and confidence. So every time I send an email out, I'm putting out to the world that that's what I'm planning to do or trying to do, and I hold myself accountable to that. Gets a little bit of feedback as being unusual rather than just the usual contact details that we have on our email signatures. Haven't seen David Batchelor here today, but David Batchelor is a very strong advocate of the MDRT and the top of the table, and indeed of the coach programme. And the very first time that David took money off me, he's taken money off me loads of times as he's a master fee charger, but the very first time he took money off me, sent me a receipt, and he sent it me in a thank you card, and I thought it was a quite nice touch. So I've had a box of thank you cards produced with my contact details on the back, and they're sitting there, got to use them up somehow. So what that does, it encourages me to live an attitude of gratitude, so that whenever somebody does anything nice for me, then I'm sending off a little thank you note and say that I appreciate what they've done for me. Not many people say thank you enough, and if they do, it's just on an email. So actually getting something in the post is sufficiently different. Before TCF came along, we thought we'd try and have some feedback of clients. How are we getting on? Did we impress you? Are you disappointed or something else? And the 6 questions on the back of what was the experience like? How would you recommend us to friends? Anything we can do to improve? I only ever get really nice feedback cards now. The staff are well trained, so they're either shredded or passed to my desk. And all the it's all process driven, and all the clients think that we're great according to what I see. We have nice birthday cards, a bit larger than most, and they sit landscape, and that obviously prompts throughout the year a few people to remind to get back in touch with us as well. We have nice branded desk diaries and pocket diaries, leather with my contact details on, to remind of who we are all year round. Haven't seen Sandro 40, but Sandro is a very long-standing MDRT and top-of-the-table member as well. And Sandro has a drinks menu, has always had a drinks menu, so I nicked this from him. We have a laminated drinks menu. Visitors to the office, not do you want drink, it's please select a drink from our drinks menu, and they go, oh, that's very nice, and off we go and get some frothy coffee or whatever they want. And on my trip to Egypt, I also got some fine china Egyptian cups with pyramids on there as well to enhance the branding. Now, some of you might think that looks like a barn, which indeed it is. It's the first building on the way into a business park where we work, middle of nowhere in some fields. But it's also the world headquarters of Wealth Strategies. And the reason that I've put that picture in there is that we've also got some branding on the blinds, which all light up at night as well. So anybody coming either to visit us or visit anybody else in the business park has got the sort of colours and the branding through the windows throughout. I'm sure that most people in the room would do client events, and I've taken people to Palmer Day, motor racing, hired Sunseeker boats, Cartier Polo, golf at Wentworth, nights at the opera, all that sort of stuff. So I'm sure you do lots of those as well. But it's a great chance to spend time with your key clients in a relaxed environment to reinforce the relationships that we have with them. We haven't got a huge amount of time, so I'm not going to run this video, but I've got a nice professionally designed website, lots of graphics on it, lots of clicky page turning and stuff like that. But the first time that anybody clicks on the website, you get a bit of a video nasty come on, and I come on and go, hello, it's Mark Hynes, and introduce them to the site. But it's quite a filtering process as well, because what I pretty much do is say, if you're looking for a financial search engine or you're looking just to shop around, then this isn't the site for you, so sod off. But if you're looking for a high-class insurance professional and work with you long-term and all that sort of stuff, then I'm the person for you to have a look at our site from there. So a little video comes on and goes off. It's quite clever because the system recognises the URL of the machine, so the second time people sign on, they don't get bothered with it from there. You just get one hit unless you choose. So, Paddy Lund, we spoke earlier, he does a welcome book, so I thought, well, that would be quite a good idea. So I've got about 30 pages as a welcome book. It goes through our process, it goes through lots of things, but just skip through a few pages. On the very first page, at your initial consultation, which is entirely at our expense. Now, the reason I say that is there's lots of people who use the expression, it's free. So come to our first meeting, it's free. Now, I have a view that if something's free, then you don't really appreciate it and you don't really value it. But if something has a cost, it has a value, and if it has a cost which I'm paying for, it's entirely at my expense, then actually the meeting is more valuable than just saying it's free. We go through 6 questions down there of what's their previous experience, what have they been looking for, what's been good and bad about financial advice in the past. So I get a bit of a clue as to what they want to see from engaging with me, so that I can try and be prepared for them. We do a little bit of biography, and then we get to a page and I say, well, I've got 4 criteria for working with you. You don't have to work with me, I don't have to work with you. We have to like each other. If we don't like each other, then we're not going to take it further. If your time's not valuable to you, if you're going to shop around and double check everything I say, then that's not going to work. You have to have future economic potential. You have to be able to have some more work for you in future. And you have to be willing to follow my advice. And I explain that to them at the first meeting. And if they're not happy to do that, then that's fine, move on. And if they are, then it's a good fit. We have some graphics about our unique 8-stage process, which on the website it all moves around in nice colours. And in the welcome book, we have descriptions behind each of those 8 stages as to who we are, how we work, and what it means to them. We have a fee charging structure in addition to a retainer program which we describe. I've just put that up there because the background of that is an iceberg, and so in my mind that's a metaphor, because most of us know that there's less than 10% of an iceberg that you actually get to see, and more than 90% of the iceberg is below the water. And I try and express to people that the FaceTime that you get with me is what you'll see for the iceberg, but behind the scenes in the office we'll do a huge amount of work for you, perhaps 9-10 times more than you'll experience. So what you pay us for it and what we'll earn is significantly more than just the time that you experience with us. We have a page about our commitments to you, how we'll treat you, how we'll respond in timely manner and what we'll do. We also have a page about your commitment to us. You'll be courteous to staff, you'll return things on time, you'll make decisions, I don't really care which way, but don't keep us hanging around. You'll make decisions promptly, and we explain that to them. Page about my USPs, page about the ethics, and we've got some stuff that we've adopted from Strategic Coach about the client conversation, when people have got concerns or opportunities or strengths, and we have some crib sheets to remind them to get that conversation flowing as well. So by the time we get to the first meeting, they've hopefully seen a website, they've hopefully had a welcome pack to know how we work as well. But I used to guess with NLP techniques what sort of person they are and how they wanted to be communicated with, but I can't concentrate on a conversation and trying to work things out. So I just ask them what's their preferred information style, how do they like to receive information, are they big picture, are they small detail, are they motivated towards something, are they motivated away something, how do they normally make decision processes, how does it feel when they make a good decision, how does it feel when you make a bad decision. And so when I'm working with them, I can focus my style and my energy in what works best for them. We're going to hear a little bit about coach in a second, but Dan Sullivan has got one question. It's such a good question that he's written a whole book about it called The Dan Sullivan Question, which is R factor. If we were to be meeting in 3 years' time, what needs to have happened in your business and your personal life for you to be happy with your progress? And you shut up, and they might take 2 minutes, and they might take 2 hours to answer that, but it's better than any fact find that you'll see designed, because it just unearths a fantastic response. But the R factor is relationship, and it determines whether they see a future with you and you in fact have a future with them. Very, very clever how that works. So drawing to a close, we're not going to have questions and answers, but I put that in because at the MDRT 2 years ago there was a lady called Victoria Laban, and one of the key points that she said is never finish a presentation off with a Q&A session, because you're not quite sure whether you're going to get questions, you're not sure how long they're going to last, or you've got no control over how the meeting finishes. So have a Q&A session and then have a little wrap up for yourself at the end as a sort of top tip. So I've pretty much finished, but what I wanted to just get message, my closing remarks are that in life, I've missed lessons often, and I've got a few lessons. I now look out all the time to try and learn as much as I can, as often as I can. I've learnt from Clive, I've learnt from Paddy Lund, I've learnt shed loads from MDRT. Try and keep an open mind. I hope that some of the ideas that I've shared with you have reminded you of things that you're already doing well, made you conscious of those. Even more so, I hope there might be some ideas that you can take away yourselves that will add to your business. And MDRT has been very, very valuable to me, fantastic to me, and I hope that those of you that haven't joined will give it some thought and go along and improve your own businesses and your own lives also. Thank you for your attention.